So if you compare gold with the US stock market, with international stocks, with emerging market stocks, with housing prices, maybe even with Bitcoin if you want to, gold has held up well compared with all those other things. Well,
do you see right now from where we are? Do you believe that the stock market can drop another 15 to 30%?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. And the reason, I mean, valuations are extremely high. And so typically, you know, we had the gap, we had the decline from March to June or whatever it was. It was a pretty heavy decline. Mm-hmm. But even at the lows, stocks were still expensive. And of course, now after the rally, they're even more expensive. So I think if the Fed does withdraw money from the economy, does withdraw liquidity, and the economy starts to decline even more rapidly than it is now, particularly corporate earnings start to come down. Even if eventually there's a pivot in the future, but as corporate earnings come down, I think we're going to start seeing another leg down in the stock market. So from here, you know, a 20 to 25% decline in the S&P would not be at all untoward, would not be at all extreme.
Now, moving on to our favorite topic on Wall Street, silver and gold. What signals are you currently looking at or waiting for in order for precious metals to take off specifically?
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, I think the first thing we should acknowledge is that gold this year, although it's down, and nobody likes it when something's down, and everybody's expecting, you know, it to be up and you know, this is this time to shine and so on. I think we need to acknowledge that gold right now is down about 6% for the year. The dollar is up about 14% for the year. So in the face of an extraordinarily strong US dollar,
right, it's held ground.
Gold has actually held up quite well. It's also held up quite well relative to other assets. You know, we've had an asset deflation, a deliberately engineered asset inflation. So if you compare gold with the US stock market, with international stocks, with emerging market stocks, with housing prices, maybe even with Bitcoin if you want to, gold has held up well compared with all those other things. So I think that's one thing we need to acknowledge. What I'm looking for, I think gold will turn. I think gold will bottom and turn when one of two things happens. And these two things may come together because they're partly related. One is when the dollar starts to go down meaningfully. And we can talk about that if you want. And the second thing is when more investors begin to realize that the Federal Reserve cannot bring inflation under control, let alone down to 2%, without causing a serious recession. And when people realize that, we don't have to get to the point where the Fed pivots, but once people realize that it's impossible, they cannot do it, I think then gold will start to turn around.
Is there any current advice that you have for investors? And through all these volatile times, what is your best advice that you have?
You know, you obviously need to be nimble, as our least favorite economist, John Maynard Keynes, said, when circumstances change, when facts change, you should change your mind. But notwithstanding that, I think the most important thing for investors in these kind of times is to have a plan, have an outlook, and not to panic. I know in my business, I know in my business, when I get several clients calling me saying, I've had enough, go to cash, can't stand it anymore, that is normally when we're very, very close to a bottom. I saw it in December of 2008. And, you know, it's people's money, right? They have the right to give instructions. I argue with them, I get a country point of view. But, you know, in the end of the day, if you can't sleep at night, and we saw that then, we saw it in March of 2020. And I said, come on, this is a health panic. It's not going to last. It's not a permanent decline in the market, and people can't take it. So the number one piece of advice I would give is not to panic. Now, I definitely think that you want to be looking for opportunities to get out of a broad stock market. We've had a good rally. We obviously had the rally from June to middle of August.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I thought that was the end of a rally. That was a 17% move from bottom to top, which is on the high side, frankly, of a bear market rally historically. Mm-hmm. So, and then we came down, and this week we've had another rally. I think you need to look at these rallies as opportunities to raise cash, to get out of positions that you're less comfortable with, but absolutely not to panic.
So you're saying you're seeing the same thing that you've seen in 2008 and 2020?
We're starting to see it. It's not to the same extent.
Okay, well, hopefully we start to see it more.
Well, I don't hope we do, because I mean, the plain fact is, when a client says to me, liquidate everything and we'll get back in when things look better, they're crystallizing losses.
Yeah, that's right.
And if they're in junior gold stocks, if you crystallize your losses now, you're going to be extraordinarily lucky to get back in at better prices and make up what you lost. Very lucky. So, mm-hmm. but yeah, I understand your point. No, we're not quite there yet, but I think we're getting very close. Very close. Do
you have any silver price predictions for going into 2023?
Any what?
Any silver price predictions going into 2023?
Well, you know what they say. Some people say don't predict, and other people say if you predict, don't give a price and a time. Silver, as we know, typically is a later cycle. It tends to come into its own later in the cycle than gold. So I honestly don't think although in the last week it's done better than gold on a percentage basis, obviously. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're at the stage yet. I know some of your listeners won't like this. I don't think we're at the point yet where I want to be more aggressive on silver than I am on gold. Let's put it that way. Now, silver is extremely cheap. We've been buying the silver ETFs this week and last week. I've been buying the silver stocks for the last 3 months. So, mm-hmm. Yeah, right. But certainly we've been buying the physical silver ETFs in the last couple of weeks.
That's good.
I do think it's extraordinarily cheap. But I don't think we're at the point where on a sustained basis, silver is going to outperform gold yet. I think we need to get a good market in gold before we get to the point where silver outperforms. But to name a number, because I know you like numbers, I mean, look, there's absolutely no reason why by the end of next year, silver shouldn't be back at 25. And that's not, particularly aggressive or dramatic.
Yeah, no, that's just being realistic.
I mean, there's absolutely no question. There's no reason why it shouldn't be back to 25. Well, if you can go from 18 to 25 or, nearly 19, but if you can go from 19 to 25 in the physical, you're going to get some pretty nice moves in the silver stocks.
Mm-hmm.